Cause it's Friday, you ain't got no job, and you ain't got shit to do.
Everyone, how are you? Good evening, good evening. I hope everybody's doing well. I hope you're having a great weekend. I am having a fantastic weekend. My weekend started off great. I had my little Chicken Pot Pie Esquire for a sleepover last night, which was so much fun. I always love having her spend the night. Oh, she's so much fun. And so my weekend is going good. It started off good. Then I went to work on the video today for the Ed Gein thing. And I don't know, it's not coming together for me, you guys. It's not the way I want it. It doesn't look right. It doesn't sound right. I'll get it. It'll be done. I promise you guys will all get to see it, but I'm not going to put it out when I'm not happy with it, because I don't think you guys would be happy with it. It's not coming together right. It's not doing what I want it to do when I want it to do it. So, anyway, I have high standards for me, and I have high standards for you guys. I want to put out the very best. I want to put out my very best work, and where it's at right now is not my very best. So be patient. I'll have it by the end of the weekend. I'm going to show it to the members first, and then I will I'll make it public for everyone. All right. But tonight we have a very, very special guest. You know her. She's in the chat all the time. She's always here. She's always at Allie's and she's always at MJ's. Sara Bellum, who served on a jury. It's a very, it's actually quite interesting case. But it is, I'm going to let you guys know now, it is not a murder. It wasn't a homicide, but it is an assault. And it's an essay of an adult, and but she's elderly. She was like 91, you guys. So I'm just putting that out here for you guys as a trigger warning. But she's going to explain the process and the voir dire and the deliberations and how they do things where she is. So they do things a little different in Sara Bellum's neck of the woods with respect to jury duty. The jury gets a little bit of different instructions than others places. So without further ado, let me bring up your friend and mine, Sara. Hello.
Hello, good evening, everyone.
How are you?
Doing pretty good.
It's weird to say how are you again after I already asked you how are you when you came backstage the first time, but it feels rude if I don't. So I feel like I need to do it in front of everybody and when we're preparing the stream. So how are you doing?
Doing well, and I'm looking forward to talking about my jury duty without the, 150 character
Limit?
limit. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So where do you think would be the best place to start? Do you want to start from the very beginning with the voir dire? And then
That sounds like a good place. Yes.
Okay, and then maybe you can then talk about the opening statements, as it relates to the actual crime itself, what you learned from, you know what I mean? Kind of like you explained it to me the other day. Do it like that. What do you think?
Sounds good.
All right. Well, without further ado, please pay attention to your friend and mine, Sara Bellum. All right.
So, voir dire was interesting. We all went in, sat in the courtroom. Actually, do you want me to draw out what the courtroom looked like?
Oh, sure. If you want to, whatever you want to do.
Okay. Let me. It's going to be so wonderful graphics.
Well, I'm going to drop my email in the chat, you guys. So if you, Allie, you didn't have to do that. Allie sent her viewers over here. I didn't have time to go and check Allie's stream out. Allie, I'm sorry for that. I went and had dinner with the Nuggie, and then Sara and I were figuring everything out on the stream. So I'll go and check it out on the replay and share it on my community tab. Thank you so much for doing that. I appreciate that so much. All right, hit it, Sara. Draw it however you want.
Okay, all right. Microsoft Paint, here we go.
All right.
So the judge was here, and he was kind of on a raised stand, and we had the witness box here, kind of off to side caddy corner. The court reporter was in the back. Defendant, it's the defendant, and then here's the prosecution table was over here. Then a jury, we were sitting here. We had the bar, and then way back here was the galley, and we had a nice separate area, so we couldn't see what the reactions of the gallery. We couldn't. They were not really close to us, so we couldn't hear. And we had the nice, comfy, overstuffed leather chairs. in the
Oh, you
gallery.
had fancy chairs.
Yes, and the gallery, they had stadium seating, like the old theater chairs. They were
Oh, the ones
wooden.
that fold down? Oh,
Yes. So
but
the
that's
only
interesting to have the gallery behind the jury where any reactions that you may be having, they can't see. And likewise, any reactions you guys may be having, any reactions they're having, you can't see. And any reactions y'all are having, they can't see. There we go.
yes. So that was really nice, and so we could focus on the witnesses, and of course we had our little notepads. Um, but when we came in, we just had to play shuffle the chairs because they called us up. They called us in, I don't know, I'm going to say maybe 20 at a time or so. And as they were asking questions, you got little snippets of what the trial was about. Because when we went in, we had absolutely no clue. Um, no clue what it was about. And then um, one potential juror had served on a jury like 23 months prior, and he didn't have to serve because it's 2 years in Indiana that you don't have to serve. So he could waive that, but he had served on a previous CSAM case, and it turns out the prosecution team that we had deals in the CSAM and the SAs, those types of trials, and so
Okay.
they asked if anyone had history, and of course we could have like a sidebar, if you will, if you needed to say something but not want to announce it to the entire room.
I see.
And so that was our first indication of the SA, was hearing that prosecutor focuses on those types of trials.
Okay.
And then as we got in it, they released a little bit more about the age of the victim was kind of dropped.
Which was?
91
Okay.
at the time. And this, again, actually happened back in 2018, before all the body cams were widely used. So we didn't have any body cams.
All
And
right.
memories, there were questions about memories and how that can kind of change over time. And that really played a very interesting part on the jury. It's how do we reconcile memory changes, people not remembering the same, if you will. That was very interesting, just trying to piece it all together. And both prosecution and defense used analogies as a puzzle, trying to put it together. And one question that was asked by the defense was, right now, what would you want to see my client without the state presenting any information? Would you like to see more information? Is he guilty, not guilty, or more information? And I'm like, you're tricky. You're tricky. And a lot of people wanted more information. And by this time, I had actually already been seated. But I'm like, you tricky, because really, it's guilty or not guilty until unless proven by a court of law. So it's wanting to make sure everyone can kind of think according to the law, if you will.
So what he was checking for is to make sure that anybody that he picked that was seated would give the defendant the presumption of innocence.
Right.
Right. Without, not basing their verdict already just on voir dire questions, on assumptions about what maybe he might have done.
Right.
Gotcha. Okay.
The presumption is the state they didn't have to, defense doesn't have to put anything on. And as of now, we don't have any information, so it's not guilty. And then there was the analogy of the puzzle, and then how, as the trial goes on, you can start seeing together the puzzle. And so you can start to see the outline, say, of an animal, and you can see, this kind of looks like a horse, but maybe you're missing a couple pieces. Well, and then I'm thinking, what if you're missing some of the face? And I'm thinking in my mind, I wonder if it could be a unicorn if they're missing that. But then again, you have shadows, and you might be able to see other pieces that maybe it is a unicorn. But then again, unicorns kind of, it's just all going in my mind. And then later, defense said, well, what if it's a unicorn? And I just started smirking because I'm like, let's get out of my head. And just various life experiences. One question that was asked of me is, would you expect to see the witness testify? And then I said, well, if possible, but if the witness can't for whatever reason, then they can't. And then that's when we eventually found out that the victim had since passed away. So that, again, made some interesting hearsay exceptions for the trial, and we didn't get to see nearly all of the evidence from that they collected, like her witness statements, her interview with the police detective, but they had to tell us, yes, we did it, but we just didn't know anything from that.
Okay. Who do you think asked better questions, the prosecution or the defense?
In the voir dire?
Yeah.
I think the defense kind of really made you think and was asking the tricky questions.
Okay.
Where the prosecution was more straightforward without that tricky trying to trick you, because like the two things that really stuck out was the whole unicorn bit, and the client is not guilty as it stood right then and there, because nothing had been presented.
Right. So, Kelly wants to know what state this was in, and if you feel comfortable, then you feel comfortable. If not, I didn't say anything, so I wasn't sure how you felt about it, so I just left that out. Okay.
And this is Indiana, and that's kind of might be a good segue into where these things occurred is a big piece of the whole issue, if you will.
So let me ask, but while you're getting ready to show where everything happened, just do what you need to do, and I'll just add it to the stream. I want to ask you, when you started piecing together what the case might be about, did you still want to be on the jury, or were you hoping that you got released?
I was still very interested in the whole process. And it was like, yeah, kind of be careful of what you wish for a little bit, but Do I have regrets? No, not at all. But it was like, okay, this we was kind of starting to get into. I used to work in medical with pediatric oncology and oncology information, and I just kind of got in a I don't know, like
Were you able
not
to
depersonalized, but
compartmentalize, maybe?
yeah, compartmentalized kind of I don't know, depersonalized, just outside of myself, and just look at things very clinically. And I think that really, really helped me during the whole trials. I'm just clinically, I'm not thinking emotionally. And that kind of helps too, just looking at the facts, I think.
Are you moving around, babe?
Sorry.
Because it's hard. You like keep going it kind of in and out where you're like really clear and then you're kind of muffled. No, don't apologize. Just it's hard to hear you sometimes. So I just wanted to know if you know you're moving around.
All right. So, all right. So this takes place in Indiana, and I'll just start with what happened. This defendant he's in his late 50s, I believe, when this occurred, and he was actually on probation from a separate SA incident, and it would happen 7 months after he got his GPS tracker removed. And we got to know there were 2 other crimes that we got to know about. We did not know his full, extensive criminal background and history, but the one that he was on probation for was an essay of an elderly woman who was in a nursing home setting, and went in through a window, put a piece of clothing over her head while he proceeded with his essay. And that becomes very important because what happened in my case was he went in actually through the front door, went in, pulled her off the bed, took the pillowcase, put the pillowcase over her head, and proceeded to essay her. And then in both these cases, he also the perpetrator took, those life alerts.
Yes.
He also took those as well. So both people, elderly, the same MO, the same very specific actions.
Right.
And then let me share my map. And this might start to make a little bit more sense.
So basically, while Sarah gets her map up, the reason that they were allowed to hear evidence of other crimes that he had committed were because the judge ruled that the probative value outweighed outweighed the prejudicial nature of the evidence. This person had a very distinct MO, as Sarah explained, and um, for he had a not just a distinct MO, he had a distinct victim pattern, a pattern of a type of victim. They were elderly. They lived in nursing homes. In the part of the nursing home where, you know how nursing homes can have where people independent care, they need a little supervision. They can't, they're not, their family feels that they need to be supervised somewhat, but they're living independently. They can still drive, they still shop for themselves, but there's staff and support with at the push of a button should they need it. Where and those are the residences that he picked, that he targeted. Those are the areas that he targeted. So now Sarah is going to explain, not quite assisted living peanut butter conspiracy, because they were independent, but I guess like a little assistance. They had their own like little townhomes. So they were living alone, but also, yeah, I guess it is assisted living. I don't know why. All right. So now what, Sarah, what were you going to say?
You have assisted living, but then you have independent living.
Yeah.
And the victim in my trial was independent living. She was driving herself. She went to the doctors on her own. I mean, everything. Completely independent. But in case something happened, they were able to call for help. But this is kind of central Indiana. You can kind of see the dotted lines, and those are our county boundaries. And it's important where the dot furthest on the left was, and this isn't exact, it's just kind of the area. I don't remember exactly where he lived. But Marion County, Indianapolis, is basically one huge city, pretty much has all one police force with the exception of a couple of locations, but it's the capital, it's large, and he lived kind of in this area to the left, or at least that was his residence that was listed on the registry. Up here in the Lawrence area, they have their own separate police force. And crossing over the line to Hancock County, which is a little bit more rural, but it's almost a suburb of Indianapolis a little bit. It's just half an hour drive from the center to downtown. But up here in the corner is where the 91-year-old victim was. And this becomes important because actually, you know what we skipped?
What did we skip?
Preliminary jury instructions.
Oh, yeah. Tell them about that.
So, in Indiana, and this kind of caught me by surprise, the jury is allowed to talk amongst ourselves during recesses as long as everyone is present, including the alternates. And we can't come to the conclusion, but we can discuss witnesses' testimony and evidence. So that's something very different than what we've seen elsewhere.
Very, very different. Usually the first thing that the judge says is, do not discuss this case with anybody at all, ever, until it's time to deliberate. If somebody asks you about this case, excuse yourself, get away from these people. They're no good, and keep it moving. That's usually what we hear. But you guys were allowed to discuss, which I would imagine would make things maybe go a little smoother. Did you feel like it helped things when it was time to deliberate to go a little smoother?
Oh, absolutely. And let me tell you, we were waiting, and we're like, okay, person X was here, we can talk. And so we really did. We used our time efficiently. We were paying attention. We and discussed what was revealed during the trial. So um, that made it, I think, a lot easier, and we could kind of tell where people maybe were sitting, as far as kind of reading the room, if you will. But
Right, right.
we still couldn't talk to our spouses or anyone else or read about the trial outside of court.
Yeah, but
So,
that's interesting that you were even allowed to talk about it in the interim, that you were allowed to talk about it with each other. Because usually they don't want you doing that either. I just think
right,
that's fascinating that they let you guys do that.
yeah. But if someone went to the bathroom, then we had to stop. But
Gotcha.
once everyone's in that jury room, we could talk about it, as long as we didn't say, okay, he's guilty, and then, first testimony.
Did you guys find yourselves when you were talking in the interim before it was time to officially deliberate, when you guys were talking like, during the breaks and, at lunch and stuff like that, did you guys find yourself talking about the same evidence over and over, or did you guys talk about different evidence each time? Like, was it a chat when you guys would talk? Were you talking only about, say, the most recent evidence that you had just heard, or did you, like I said, find yourselves talking about some of the evidence more frequently than more frequently, I guess is the question.
It was a little bit of both, where we would definitely talk about the new items, but then we would also assimilate it into what we've heard previously and how that could maybe change according to what certain people said. Um, so we were literally trying to put the puzzle pieces together and trying to see how things fit. And then things changed as different evidence, or someone might see something a little bit different. And um, different people picked up on different things. But it wasn't rehashing anything, it was just kind of a work in progress.
Right. So did you guys all sort of view the evidence in a similar fashion and then just kind of put it together in a way that was that eventually ended up in your verdict? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, we would see things different. We would pick up on different items, and based on our experiences, um, maybe one person had a different type of experience or would focus in or kind of, oh, that's interesting, uh, and would bring it up. But we worked really well together as a group, and just trying to be serious and then work through the questions, the evidence, and it was a little challenging especially with the memories, with it being several years out.
Okay, so the crime occurred in 2018. And you served on the jury in 2024?
2025 in February.
Oh, did you? It was this year in February? Really? I
Yes.
thought it was
Yep.
last year for some reason.
Oh.
I don't know why I thought it was. Y'all, I'm sure she told me, and I know I was listening, but for some reason, I guess I just had it stuck in my brain that it was 2024 because I feel like I was covering a trial in February of 2025, and I feel like you were there, but you must not have been, obviously, unless it was, maybe there was no overlap. Maybe how long was the trial?
The actual trial was 2.5 days and 3 days total because we had the morning for the voir dire.
Right. How long? So the voir dire took took half a day.
Yep. We had lunch and then we came back from lunch and got to work.
Wow. Wow. How many people showed up for the voir dire? Do you know? Do you remember?
Oh, there were over 100 people.
Oh, wow.
In the room. I was randomly one of the first people that was called up, so I got a leather seat right away.
That's
So
important.
that was nice. Yes. So I didn't have to suffer through sitting on those hard seats for very long at all.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Now, when you were going through the voir dire process, when you were asked questions by the prosecution and by the defense, did each person get the same question? Were you guys, because I know they do the group, and then did they do this? Did they do group and then individuals, or no?
It was group and then individual, to remember whatever. They had our pre-trial questionnaires, if you will.
Okay.
Already submitted, and we had, when we were called for jury duty, we were notified that, hey, you're going to be called for jury duty, okay. And then when we got the jury summons, the questionnaire came, so they had time to look through. So
okay,
they had all sorts of their system according to how we replied. There might be specific questions.
Okay.
Based on your questionnaire.
All right. Did you, when you were questioned specifically, just individually, what was a question that stood out to you that you maybe at the time they were asking you the question couldn't figure out why they were asking you that question, but then later were you able to figure out later, did it make sense why they asked you that question?
I don't think so. I know, well, we talked to the prosecution afterwards. They came and spoke with the jury, and it was a good hour or more after we had delivered the verdict.
Okay.
Because they got to fill us in on what we kind of had questions on or what we were thinking, because we kind of had this is most likely, this is probably what happened, kind of fill in the blanks based on our common sense, and not that it had anything to do with the verdict or anything else, but just trying to put the story together.
Okay.
And turns out we were pretty
close.
Pretty close, yes.
Okay.
And prosecution asked me about the not having the witness available or the victim available for
to testify.
To testify. Sorry, and it's just because I wanted to look at all the evidence, and when I wanted to see all the evidence as give me everything, and it's like, no, give me the evidence, let me piece it all together and not make anything determinations until, because one thing can make a huge difference.
Right. Right. All right. So now, do you want to go into um, the actual case, or is there more that you want to explain with the map? Because I feel like I
Um,
interrupted you, but now I can't remember if I did or if I didn't. But I feel
I
like I
interrupted
did
myself
because
too.
I'm an interrupter.
So,
So
no, that was me having an ADD moment with the whole. Oh, and we also got to ask questions of the witnesses. The jury did, and that also played a huge piece in our
you found
case.
that helpful.
Yes, and there's a very just a pivotal moment in the trial because of a jury question. So as you see, back to my dots in the map,
Okay.
across, just across. So here we're in the far corner, upper right corner is where in Hancock County, and then in Marion County with the separate police um, jurisdiction. One day short of 3 months later, there was across in Marion County another SA of an elderly victim who had a piece of clothing thrown over her head as she was SA'd in a nursing home or nursing retirement village, independent living. So, very, very unusual victim profile and SA by a random perpetrator, someone you don't know, is extremely uncommon. Statistically, and not to sound cold or anything else, but many victims know their assailant.
Right. Right.
So, in my theory, with the different jurisdictions, it's just trying to make it a little bit more difficult. But as we found out, them going through the evidence, witnesses, police jurisdictions, they talk and
Mm-hmm.
they share. And the two um, uh, attacks were very intermixed, and it took a while to even obtain a suspect because who is this? McCordsville is a very small town at this time. It's exploded since COVID, and there's all sorts of warehouses and Amazons here and Walmart distributions here now. So it's literally exploded since. But really tiny, small town, um, and it just doesn't happen there.
Right. Right.
So um, when they started out the trial, right off the bat, the first two witnesses were the nurses who came in and discovered the victim. Um, and the first nurse um, in the independent living, they don't really have any contact. They don't really go in the houses. They don't because they're so independent. Um, but the nurse, the first nurse, she stopped working at that location shortly after this event. The second nurse continued on working, and their testimonies were almost polar opposites as to what they did when they first got in. As far as searching, looking through the house, um, what they did, but where they were the same was where the victim was, how the victim seemed, what they did with the victim. They took the the comforter off and covered her up for decency's sake, and um, those were the same. And then the third witness was the director of the whole entire facility, and she explained that they came up with new policies on what to do, checking on these independent living um, residents. And what I realized when she was going through that testimony was the person who stayed on was relaying the new policy, whereas the person who shortly left must have been saying what they actually did, because you could tell these ladies were very affected by what had happened. And it just seemed to me that the second witness was, okay, this is what I do, and just having new policies drilled into you kind of sticks, especially if she had such a traumatic experience. And so that was one way that we could reconcile what memory did, if that makes sense.
Sorry, I
And
had to mute. Mac was screaming in the
okay,
background, and I had to shut the door. Okay, so but I want to ask you
like, wait,
something.
did I lose you?
Can you
Okay.
hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I had to mute because Mac was screaming in the background. Okay, I wanted to ask you, because I don't think you explained this. You did to me, but I want you to explain to the audience how, or to the chat, how did those two nurses come and to find the victim? Because didn't he take her life alert from her?
Yes.
Okay.
And what we figured, and because they looked everywhere for the life alert, and the life alert was pressed, but we believe that it was pressed when he took it.
So inadvertently by the assailant,
Yes.
not wow.
Yes.
I feel like that's fate intervening.
Yes, exactly. And um, so then we got to hear the 911 call and the evidence, and you could hear the victim in the background, but the nurses were relaying everything that the victim was stating. And because it was excited utterances, she was in a very um, poor state. We got to see redacted pictures. We did not get to see very intimate areas. It was black bar covered, but we could see handprints on the victim, on her skin from the bruising. We uh, and this victim was a very sweet single church, God-fearing lady, spinster, never been married, never had kids, never been with intimately with a man. And because of that, with not having, and this is, we had an SA nurse examiner also testify, and this victim was in very rough shape because of the tearing. She, of course, first time, you know, doesn't have the estrogen, so doesn't have the pliability, if you will. And the tearing, um, both front and back, because, and by back, I mean, you know,
We get it. We
yeah,
gotcha.
I'm trying to be very careful, but
You are doing a great job. You're doing a very great job. And we appreciate that.
the tearing was extensive and quite painful, and she had to undergo surgery to reconstruct and fix everything. And
Because it was so brutal.
yes, the tearing was extensive, and in the bleeding, they instead of the normal sane exam room, they put her in a trauma room because the nurse was really worried for her,
She was
vital
in a
signs, and
she was in a
didn't
very fragile state after all of this. I mean, she's look, you guys, she was 91 years old. She's the victim. The reason there's no testimony from the victim is because the victim passed. What did you test? What, a couple of years after the assault, she declined rather quickly. She went from being really, really independent and drove and did her own shopping and just did her own thing and took care of herself to memory issues. And, she declined very quickly after this.
yes, her, as far as like her quality of life, within a year, it was a rapid decline. I would say she, 93, 95, something like that. But she was in absolutely, if she hadn't passed, I don't know that she would have been able to testify.
Right.
But back to the 911 call, because she was in a very, this had just happened. She was suffering severe injuries. The 911 call and what was relayed on the 911 call was allowed in because of the excited utterances. We were privy to, what is it? When they objection, but they.
Speaking objections.
Yes, speaking objections. So we got to hear a little bit of the back and forth. And so that was really interesting and provided a little bit of insight. So we'll get there, Kimberly. We will get there. So what little she said and was able to relay, the perpetrator first off came in and threatened to kill her if she screamed or made noise. So she had to be quiet.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, Sarah, because that's really important. That was the wrong point to interrupt at. Please continue, because I know there's more to that part of the story, and I want you to say it. So yeah. Sorry about that.
That's okay. And one thing she had mentioned was that he was young and was a smooth talker. And this is one point that the defense was keen to pick up on was, well, he's in his late 50s. He's got salt and pepper hair, with the graying hair. And it's like, well, we're thinking, well, a 60-year-old is younger to a 91-year-old.
Right.
And two, she had a pillowcase on her head. So she didn't get a good look at at the person,
Right.
except for the fact that he had big, strong arms and he was black. And that was about the only visual that she could have, but she did hear his voice.
Okay.
So that was one bit. We're like, okay, yeah, younger is all relative.
Right.
And one other witness that we had was a
Well, wait.
sheriff.
Tell him what else happened with her. What she said to him.
Oh, this wasn't in the trial. Yeah, that and.
Oh, it wasn't in the trial?
No, this is something that we found out after the fact, talking to the prosecution.
Okay.
But the victim forgave him.
She told him that she said, "I forgive you." And the reason why I wanted Sarah to bring that up and talk about that is because, last weekend I was on a live with ATS News, and we were talking about, we were going over Bethany Funk's interrogation video. And as you guys know, Bethany and Dylan have faced a ton of criticism. And why didn't they do this? And why did they do that? And why didn't they call sooner? And all the things. And one of the things that Amber and I were talking about was, is it possible that Dylan was threatened by Brian Koberger and she's just never mentioned it? And, and the reason I mention that is because if you think about it from this perspective, if you put yourself in the victim's shoes, and Dylan and Bethany are victims, even though they survived, they're still victims. And in the moment, this is a stranger to you. These girls did not recognize Brian Koberger at all. It wasn't somebody that, hey, Jacqueline, it wasn't somebody that they knew. Dylan had no idea if they would ever catch this person. And now she knows at some point it's going to come out that there are two witnesses. She has no idea if they're ever going to catch this guy. He's just out there. And now he knows that there are two survivors. What's to keep him from coming back? So, I just wanted to point out that in the moment when something like this is happening, a victim will do anything, say anything to survive. There have been women who have been the victims of horrific, brutal essays that have lasted hours, that have sat with the perpetrator after the perpetrator was done and had a beer just to distract the victim, just to distract the perpetrator from killing them. They wanted to survive. So I think we can give Dylan and Bethany a little grace because we don't know all the things and we're not going to know all the things. So that's all I wanted to point out. All right, please continue, Sarah.
Okay. Oh yes. So the sheriff deputy comes in and was giving his testimony, and at one point he was asked, "Well, how tall was she?" And he had said about 5'10", my height. Well, later on, during the same testimony, it came out that her height was 5'2". That's a huge difference. But when we thought about it, it actually came out during the deputy's testimony that he had met the victim once before, when he was over with his grandmother when he was younger, like a lot younger. So we thought, well, first, if he's grown, then maybe he was about as tall as her. And then the second thing was what we figured with her being in that shape she was on the ground, didn't get off the ground until she was put on the uh, stretcher to go to the hospital. So she never really stood up, and that's probably where the difference came from. And that was again one of the things, one of the times that we revisited old testimony, if you will.
Okay.
Once we found out something new.
You're a little bit muffled, babe.
Okay.
There you go. Much better.
All right. Just my ear things were slipping down my neck, I guess. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
So
this is important because, there are things that come up and, that are little details. And sometimes the devil is in the details, but sometimes we, as a true crime community, tend to hyper focus on details that can easily be explained. And I'm glad you brought that up, because it's interesting to how the jury, when they're back deliberating, how they reconcile these things. Because people would think, it's me, I'm people, an officer certainly would understand how tall a person was at the, if, he walks into a scene like that. But in all fairness, if a person is laying down, they might appear to be taller than what they really are. And perhaps, and also memories do fade. And it's not, there's a difference between a lie and misremembering. A lie is intentional. Misremembering is not intentional. That's all I wanted to point out. Let me use my court voice. Please continue.
So they packed her up, sent her off to the hospital where she got her exam. And again, her state was such that the nurse could not complete the exam. They had to go in and do the surgery because she was actually bleeding through the pads that were placed under her. And we got to find out what happened during the assault, because when someone is seeking medical attention and medical care, that is an exception to the hearsay. So the information that she relayed to the same examiner was allowed to come in. And defense tried to stop that, but it came in. And then here, they collected the DNA. We eventually did get a DNA analyst to testify. The sample was very dilute, and the only thing that they could say was there was male DNA present. They could not get enough. It was not sufficient enough to say who it was, that there was a Y chromosome present. Meanwhile, they look at the the SA offender registries.
The offender registry. Gotcha.
Yes,
gotcha.
For that area, and looked at everyone, and everyone was excluded. Everybody at the retirement nursing facility was looked at. The only thing that they found was a phlebotomist that worked on the more skilled nursing areas. There was a warrant on him. He did happen to be the same. He happened to be black. And this is where the shaggy defense, if you will, came in. They were trying to point everything to this person that had the warrant that worked there.
So almost an alternate perpetrator theory without truly making it an alternate theory.
Oh no, they definitely
did they
tried
use?
to. Oh yes.
Okay, so they
Oh
did use an alternate perpetrator theory.
yes,
Okay,
yes. They were
okay.
trying to point it at this person, and that
Okay.
they didn't fully exclude this person. They didn't fully go after this person. But before I get to that part, they took, they took all the pictures. They took some carpet and some of the body fluid staining, and they had to dry it in their secure evidence area.
So
If they
not
don't
on the
dry it,
floor in somebody's office?
no,
Oh,
no,
okay.
not at all.
Mm.
And
Oh,
they
that's
had
not how we do things. Did they collect it in red Solo cups?
no red Solo
No.
cups.
How
No,
about Stop and Shop bags?
no,
No. Leaf blowers?
no,
Were they used? Okay, just checking.
no,
All right,
yeah.
all right, that's all. Carry on.
So, as they were drying these pieces of carpet, they noticed some hairs, and they immediately collected those hairs properly with tweezers, and then 3 hairs were found. Each hair was individually placed into a test tube, a sterile test tube labeled sealed, no Solo cups. And then the lead detective went through um, some of they take 4K pictures of the scene. And one thing that kind of surprised me was, it was less than 24 hours and they had released the crime scene. They didn't collect every single stained area um, for forensic analysis.
Were they asked about why they didn't do that? Because usually they are. Can you remember, if you remember?
I don't really remember that because I think it got overshadowed by a different jury question.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, do you remember what that question was?
Yes, I'll get to that one.
Yeah. That's the big one. Okay.
Yes,
Okay.
that's a really big one.
Okay. I'll let you keep going.
So, meanwhile, the lead detective is going through the 4K photos and had blown them up and found more hairs located within very distinct stains, but they did not collect it. They went back to the nursing facility, and the carpet was all rolled up, removed, and was sitting outside. But they found 3 more hairs exactly where the picture depicted them. So then the lead detective then collected the 3 hairs, put it in like a small envelope, not individually in the test tubes, um, labeled them. But when the DNA analyst took those out, there were only 2 hairs instead of the 3. Don't know what happened to them. And what was unclear was which hairs were tested. And my theory is that the defense was really going to try to throw reasonable doubt into it. Hey, these could have been the hairs that were outside, and there was even a little bit of hint to that. I think it was in the opening statements as well. And question, well, if it's outside, does it you know, can the weather really affect it? The elements affect the quality of these hairs and the DNA on these hairs. 3 hairs were tested, but which ones were they? Um, and those 3 hairs, according to the DNA analyst, there were 2 from the victim and 1 from the perpetrator. Now, they were trying to throw doubt as to, oh, you don't know which 3, whose is it? Because you have this carpet sitting outside, but then enter the jury. The jury asks which hairs were tested, and they were the 3 that came from the test tubes.
Which is
So,
interesting that you guys picked up on that, right? And not, you think that the prosecutor would want that to come out through testimony immediately, or at some point, you know what I mean? Not that you think that the prosecution would want to make that distinction, even on redirect, something. But the fact that they didn't, and you guys had to ask, that's crazy to me. But so lets you know that the jury, you guys are really paying attention.
oh yes, we definitely were, and just very serious about what we were there to do. And the reason why is is something that came up after the verdict, was, they read their accession numbers, and because of the accession numbers, the way that the report was, okay, this is now evidence according to this lab, but then, so they get different labels for the same thing according to where it's processed, right? So they kind of lost track of what was tested in that, because of the different names. And again, Hancock County, it's not nearly like downtown Indianapolis where the crime rate's a lot higher. It's not these violent, this violent assault is not common here at all. Um, so I don't know if that had anything to do with it, or regardless, it doesn't matter. That was when the first time I had seen the defendant speaking to his lawyer. Otherwise, the whole time he's just taking notes. But finding out that the hairs that were tested were from the test tubes and not the items that had been outside really kind of was a pivotal moment, I think. Um, but meanwhile, how did we find out who this guy was? So they had gone through all the likely people, and what they found, they they didn't find anyone. But then 1 day short of 3 months later, of course, the second um, assault occurred in the next door county, where they were able to actually get bodily fluid, a good bodily fluid sample, which, um, they still didn't have someone to attach it to. But meanwhile, small town, some random night, the beat cop goes around, sees a car that she doesn't recognize, and she runs the plate. When the plate pops up, it pops the alert that it's to a registered SA, and not just a registered SA, but also another person. So it's registered to 2 different people at 2 different addresses. This person, and they were wondering, why did this not pop up in any of the other searches when they were looking for potential suspects? Well, it's because this person lived on the west side of Indianapolis, but this person that had the shared car registration was like a social worker or a program person that worked in the prison where um, this defendant was housed before he was out on probation, and they were in a romantic relationship, right? So I have another map that I would like to share.
All right. Kimberly is asking if they lost track of the chain of command of the DNA evidence. Is that what
No,
right? Okay.
no, it just their names, like the way that the report was read, just kind of gave the internal labs names of the samples that they ran.
I see.
So it was like, you know, it just kind of
The
made it more complicated than what it needed to be.
right.
And so that's where it was kind of lost in translation. But no, they knew exactly which ones. She knew
Gotcha.
exactly which samples she ran.
Right. Right. All right.
Okay.
That makes sense. Okay.
So the victims,
There it goes. All right. Let me take
yeah,
this off, and let me put this in the spotlight. There we go.
so the victim's location was right here, and this paramour, if you will, lived 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here.
No, no,
So
Shirley, babe, not his sponsor, honey. No, no, his Sancha, his girlfriend.
yeah, his romantic interest, um, the distance between this house and this residence is 400 feet. And it kind of came out, they even called his probation officer, one of them, and questions were asked why about his primary residence and what we kind of gathered indirectly based on a question that was asked was, and found out later after the fact, talking to the prosecution, was that he had asked to live with his girlfriend at this address, and he was denied because of the proximity to the senior living facility. So, and as you can see, there's like a little fence here. This pond comes into play a little bit, allegedly. But it just shocking just how close this person was.
Yeah, that's really scary. I mean, the fact that no, okay, so what had happened, Kimberly, was I don't know if stalked is the right word to use, but he was dating this person who worked in some capacity for what, a prison,
Yes.
Sarah? And when he was released, he wanted to live with her that's where he wanted his residence to be. But because of his prior crime, he was not allowed to, because of the proximity to the nursing home. His prior victim had been also, there were 3 victims altogether. Am I right, Sarah? There was the first victim, which is what got him to wear the ankle monitor in the first place. There was
Correct.
the 91-year-old victim that Sarah sat on the trial for. And then there was, after the 91-year-old victim, there was a third victim that happened in a different county. But they're they are that is the issue, and how they caught him is because an officer, a patrol officer who was just doing their job, noticed a vehicle that was out of place. It was not it was a small town. Everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows what vehicles belong and what vehicles don't, and noted it, and it got it was run. And it turned out that it came back to 2 people, the perpetrator and his girlfriend. But because of her job at in some capacity with the prison, it was sort of a red flag. It drew some attention. It raised an eyebrow. Do I have all that right?
Yes, and it raised an eyebrow, because it explains why he would be in that area, but not exactly on the register.
So he was registered in one county, you guys, but actually resided in another. And when they were asked about it, she said, his girlfriend said, "Oh, no, 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 no. He's here occasionally." Um,
Yeah,
which
but
was,
that's getting ahead of ourselves.
oh, sorry, sorry, sorry. Okay,
That's
okay.
okay.
All right.
Yeah, there's a lot of little neat, not neat, but like just fascinating pieces of information.
Okay.
And so yes, and so the one that happened in Marion County and the one that happened in Hancock, they were working together. So we also got to hear from the lead detective in the Lawrence and Marion County case, um, because they were so similar. Now, in that case, we got to learn during the trial that he pled to um, doing that crime. The evidence was a lot stronger. They had the bodily fluids on the victim that were positive, whereas our case was not quite as strong per se, at least in their mind, until the jury just said, "Oh, which hairs were tested again?" The hairs that were in the stains collected at the time of the crime scene processing. So next, and I was very surprised when the defense called the defendant up to testify. I was not expecting it. That was another one of those moments during the trial that kind of made me have a double take. He took the stand, and the very first thing that I noticed was his voice. It sounded smooth, and it sounded a lot younger than what he was. Didn't have, um, hoarseness, or didn't sound like, um, didn't have the, the grandma kind of, warble, if you will. Very, very smooth talking, sounded much younger than what he was. And that really stuck out to me. Um, Another thing was he's told this story about how they first allegedly met, where he was going to fish in that retention pond and was being chased by geese, and she was laughing at him because these geese were chasing. Sometime in March is how he said it, and that kind of like, that's still kind of cold around here, and I don't know that it would necessarily be a nice time for fishing in a retention pond, but okay. And then he goes on and I mentioned, yes, I'm really trying to get on the straight and narrow and be better. But then he had mentioned, unfortunately, I taken drugs that night, and then that's when he did the third essay. And I was like, excuse me, what? He just kind of volunteered it, and it was almost like a little leak almost. It's like, that doesn't make sense because this happened after our 91-year-old victim. And he stumbled on her name a little bit. He's like, yeah, she wanted me to call her a nickname, and that was like, that seemed awkward and forced, and just stumbled on it a little bit. So meanwhile, I did not talk about the final numbers of the DNA. Goodness.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the DNA was, the 3 hairs, 2 of the victim, 1 of the defendant, and then he, on the confidence level, it came back as 1 in 1 trillion, and it's really weird how they say, it's 2 unrelated individuals, whatever. And I'm like, that's kind of low, but come to find out, no, that was the confidence level. 1 in 1 trillion is the highest confidence level that they could have. But when they ran the numbers, they did the math, the likelihood that it was 2 unrelated individuals from these people was 1 in like 4.5 octodecillion. And that is 4 followed by 57 other numbers. Very big number.
That means it's you. Not you,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
there's no shot that it's not you. This was not this was not a mistake. It's you.
Yes.
This is this person's DNA.
Yes. And so back to the defendant's testimony was, so obviously his DNA got in with the body fluids, in the stains. So he put himself in her house by saying, yeah, she had me move these 2 large plants inside for protection or whatever it was. They were on her porch and moved them inside, and they were right behind her at the edge of the couch on either side, which of course is the living room, but these hairs were found in the bedroom. So it's like, okay. And that kind of, trying to think if there was one other thing.
How did you feel about him testifying? Like, not about him actually testifying, but how did you feel about his testimony? For example, on direct, did it seem like he had sort of, a silver tongue, and, he was able to get out basically what he wanted to get out as far as his testimony? Did you feel like did you feel like the defense attorney asked good questions? Just on direct, and then I'll ask you about cross-exam.
First of all, I was shocked. I was not expecting to hear from him, and I was a little disappointed in that because I was curious what was his voice like.
Right.
And I kind of got the feeling that the defense attorney was, I don't know, not at a loss, just he tried. We'll say that. But
he did the best he could with what he had.
Yeah. What can you do, especially with us, asking, well, which hairs were tested? And maybe that, I don't know if he was originally planning on testifying or that it was planned that he wouldn't, but I kind of got the impression that plans had kind of changed and it was a little bit unexpected, or it was a challenge. We'll say that.
Well, let me ask you this. When you were a juror, did you guys, like we've watched in many, many trials, let's just take the most recent one, Donna Adelson, where they bring the jury in and then then something comes up during the trial, they have to take the jury away. Or they tell the jury, they told you guys to be there at a certain period of time. And did you guys have to sit around a lot in the jury room waiting for things like we've seen before, particularly after the state rested? Because how many witnesses did the defense put on? Just him?
Just him.
Okay, so when the state rested, did the state rest at the beginning of the day, the middle of the day, or the end of the day?
Oh, they rested at a break. We had an early lunch that day.
Okay.
And it was a little bit longer.
Okay.
Oh, yes, and that reminded me, the cell phone guy.
Okay.
We did have the cell phone. We didn't have downloads of like the phones.
Right.
And I forgot when we were talking, he actually had 2 different cell phone numbers.
Oh.
Yeah, and one of them didn't occur. He wasn't using during the times of these crimes.
Okay.
And I had kind of forgotten that. But what we saw in the cell phone data was on the night of this SA, he was at his girlfriend's house and 11:11, and I remember that very clearly. It was 11:11.
Gannon.
All network activity stopped, and he was in the location of both the home and the victim's home.
Well, right, because they're only 400 feet apart, for the
Right.
love of Pete.
Right.
Wow.
So, and we asked, and it was asked, is that normal for it to stop?
Right, for his phone to have no activity and appear to be off for that amount of time. Got it.
And it happened on some other occasions, but it wasn't that often. And
Okay.
it didn't turn back on until he was at his new place of work. Oh, and that was the other thing that he was talking about. That because of traffic, he got a new place of work, and it was so much easier traffic-wise to stay the night at his girlfriend's house.
Occasionally, 5 nights a week.
Quote unquote, occasionally, right. So to go up to his work, and I'm thinking occasionally is not what's a typical work job, whatever, say 5 days a week, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's not occasional.
That's not occasional. Okay. Occasionally is once or twice a month, not even once or twice a week. if you're doing anything with any frequency, right? Even if it's like twice a week, every week, the whole month, that's not occasionally either. That's consistently, that's a routine. Occasionally is like I'm lactose intolerant. Occasionally, once every 6 months, will I break my own rule and indulge in ice cream. That's occasionally, not 5 days out of a week. There's only 7 days in the week. Kimberly wants to know if the defendant went into this trial knowing there was DNA evidence.
Yes, they knew about the hairs, and I think that the defense was trying to throw in that reasonable doubt um, into the mix with, hey, this was outside.
Right,
This could have been one of the hairs that was outside. It could have just got in there. It wasn't under lock and key.
right. They
Um,
bungled the collection of this evidence. They got it late. How
right,
do we know? Right. How do
right,
we even know what? And to be fair, to be clear, you guys, the hairs that they tested had the root attached. So there was actual DNA, not mitochondrial DNA.
yeah,
Mitochondrial DNA, you anybody from your mother's side of the that your hair DNA comes from your mother's side. So anybody on the mother's side will have the same mitochondrial DNA. It's not as definitive as actual as um, DNA itself. It's still a good tool. It's just not as It's not. It doesn't rule out as many people as the other DNA does. The other
right.
type. Okay.
So I think that was one of the pieces to kind of throw that reasonable doubt. And the other one was this the other person who had the warrant, and they actually had a warrant for to go collect this person of interest, we'll say, his DNA. But the warrant was such that it was not a forceful, reasonable force, have to take it, what have you. It was um, to get it. But when they served this warrant to this gentleman, he refused to open the door. So, because of the way the warrant was written, they could not use the force, they could not open the door, even though they knew he was there. And they never ended up collecting the DNA because by the time um, they had served that warrant, they had forcibly collected the defendant's um, DNA, but he was in the jail in custody because of the other case, and so force could be used with him. And they were saying, well, this is not fair. They didn't search, but there was nothing else to compare it to. It came back as the defendant's DNA, and the other DNA that came with the same kit just had a Y, and they couldn't get a profile out of that even if they wanted to. So it's like, of course, they wouldn't get his DNA. There's no reason to. But that was something that defense kind of focused on. Um, and the other part that the defense kind of complained about was, why did it take so long? And this is what we discussed in our deliberations. Like, well, it took a while to solve, and then their victim got sick. We had COVID, and then he had to go through the whole legal process for the case that he committed after this one. So that whole plea. So, and the state also got a little bit mad after the fact. We found out, yeah, and then he also pulled a Sarah Boone and wanted to be his own, not necessarily Sarah Boone, but he pulled some tricks to delay it. himself, basically, is what we found out after the fact. But so it was like, that doesn't hold any water. Nice try, but so once we had all the evidence, we went in, we discussed we were given our instructions, and we kind of debriefed, if you will, discussed the testimony of the defendant, and then we looked at the evidence. We looked at the pictures. One thing I was really interested in was plants, because I wanted to see what kind of plants she had around her house. I know, my experience, if you have, these big potted plants, you're going to have other plants on stands, and you're going to have more than just that. I know my grandmothers, they had those. My mother-in-law has it. So when I looked, I only saw small succulents scattered about. No big plants, no big plant stands, none of the big vines, nothing. Just for a little bit of color. And her house was immaculate. Everything was incredibly neat. It was clean. Another juror noticed there were vacuum lines in the carpet. So it was like, she's keeping it this clean. Why are the hairs in the bedroom,
Right.
in the fluids,
And
it
nowhere else?
Yeah, exactly. And the other, another juror had brought up, hey, where he said we were going to put the big plants was right in the middle of the walkway. A 91-year-old woman is not going to put things blocking the pathway.
Right.
They don't want trip hazards.
Right. Or fire hazards. Those things are
Right.
heavy. Sprinkle Donut wants to know, when you looked at the defendant, did he look normal or look like a creep?
I mean, I didn't really want to look at him and get any preconceived notions. I didn't try to look at him a lot. I did notice he would always be kind of hunched over. I think it was maybe he was trying to be smaller.
Okay.
But he was a very large, tall, big man. And that was another thing, again, defense trying to throw that, reasonable doubt in. He did not look young,
Right.
because he had this salt and pepper hair, but we're like, didn't see him. I had the pillowcase. Sounded much younger than what he was.
Interesting. It's
But yes,
interesting that he stayed hunched over in an effort to make himself appear smaller, and keep on. There's there's more of a twist to the plants. Tell
yes.
them.
Yes, but exactly, Kimberly. These are, you can hold them in one hand. The other thing was, after talking to the prosecution after the trial, there were two very large plants on her neighbor's porch. So if he's looking at them, because they have, because of discovery, he's got these photos. He's thinking, these plants, but no, those big, large plants were his neighbor's house. So that was the first thing. The second thing is, when I mentioned that to the prosecution, the prosecutor said, oh yeah, all our plants are plastic.
So she wasn't even a plant lady, y'all.
Nah.
And those big ass pots of plants, whatever you put in there, that is a commitment. That means, you are committed to growing something. And typically you would not have them in the middle of anything, first of all. And second of all, the fact that she had nothing but plastic plants in her house means that she didn't like plants at all. And it was just something that he threw in there to explain away why his hairs would be found in the victim's home. He had to explain it away some way. He had to say, he had to explain why why his hair was there. When you guys delivered the verdict, did he look at you? Because some places make you stand while the verdict is read. Some courtrooms don't. Like in Florida, it goes both ways. You can either stand but it's at the judge's discretion. We know that Donna sat. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God. She had a really W in there. Oh my God. She was so upset. She was so mad. So mad.
Yeah, I don't remember. 'Cause I remember I just was more focused on the judge. I volunteered to be a foreperson. That was one thing that we're like, um, it, it was not assigned. It was up to us how we do it. And I volunteered just being medical, and I'm like, I can talk about this stuff, no problem. Because on our jury there were like early 20s men, and then there were older retired men, but any female who was of the victim demographic was excluded by the defense.
Well, that makes sense. Of course, they wouldn't want to have women around her age sitting on the jury.
Right.
Did after you gave the verdict, because this is such a small area, not a highly populated area, and not only that, but just the details of the case. Were you guys did media try to interview you guys? Was this covered?
This was covered in our local paper, and each day there was like a trial summary of it. Now, the media presence wasn't like what we'd see in a huge major,
Right. Not
trials.
Don. It wasn't Donna.
We
Yeah, wasn't
we
Donna
weren't.
Adelson trial. Gotcha.
No. So we didn't have that, and plus we had actually, like I said, the prosecution came back and spoke with us, answered questions and about the case, and we found out things that they couldn't tell us during the trial. One such thing is we figured that he just went through the front door. Because one thing that did come out was the victim heard like the front door as the entry point, and we figured, yeah, well, that kind of makes sense. If a elderly lady, kind of trusting, she may not keep her door locked, and come to find out, that's exactly what happened.
Right, because she probably lived most of her life in a time period where you might not have to lock your doors.
Right.
There was a time when that was, I mean, I don't know if there was ever truly, truly a time where it's a good idea to leave your door unlocked. But what I'll say is there was a mindset that it was okay, you were safe to leave your door unlocked. And Angela Mills said, Dr. G said, half of Donna's reaction was fake. Yes, I had a members only live, Angela, and we watched some of Dr. G's commentary about Donna's reaction. And I mean, I think anybody watching Donna's reaction to the verdict saw everything that Dr. G said. I mean, there was, she looked like she was trying to cry. She had the, face of somebody who you would expect to see, that face of somebody who's crying, except for there was never any tears, not a half a tear, not a quarter of a tear, not a single tear. And then there were the other movements that she would do in between, which were more, and I saw this, and I think everybody in the chat can agree, that were more indicative of seething rage, past anger. She was more than angry. I think she was seething with rage. Especially when Dan Markel's parents got up to speak, and yeah, she was seething with rage. Fucking Donna Adelson. Ugh. God, we still have a whole month before her sentencing. She should have just got it over with. She's so ridiculous. Anyway, sorry.
That's fine.
She still pisses me off to this day. I know she's been found guilty. She's going away for whatever the rest of her life looks like for her, but still, just her whole attitude about the whole thing, it just infuriates me. Her reactions, shaking her head when Dan's mother and father were talking about, him as a person, who he was as a human being, what they knew about him, all of his good qualities. And she's just shaking her head. It just pissed me off. I'm sorry. I need to let it go. Let it go, Jen. Just let it go. So it's over and done with. Anyway. So you guys learned some stuff afterwards through talking with the prosecution that he did in fact go in the front door.
Yes. Which is kind of common sense and the most logical. She heard it. Now she was saying that it sounded like he went through the window when he left, but as far as we were concerned, she'd just been through a trauma. She could have heard something else, and we figured he probably just left the way he came.
Right, right.
So yeah, that was, I guess, one of those things where we didn't take much weight into that portion of the testimony.
Gotcha.
Now, as far as we just did our final look through the evidence, and there were 3 counts that were charged, all felony 1. The first one was the SA, the traditional,
right,
vaginally. The second one was felony backdoor, if you will.
Gotcha.
And the third one was burglary with the intention of doing the other 2 felonies. And burglary is basically breaking and entering, and to break and enter, you have to use some sort of force, and that could just be turning a key, turning a doorknob. It doesn't have to be with a crowbar, kicking the door in. It just, any force, no matter how light,
right,
has to be used. They could have charged for kidnapping, and kidnapping would have been where he pulled her off the bed and took her to the floor, but they're like, no, we don't need to do that.
Right.
So we went around. First of all, we passed around the blank verdict forms just so everyone could see them. And then we all just voted out loud what we thought it was guilty or not guilty. And it was just guilty count 1. And then count 2. One juror kind of pushed the pause button and just said, I want to be sure that it was the rear it occurred, and it wasn't because it just tore completely through. Right. And we were able to say no, because this is what was said, this is what was shown. And he's like, okay, I just wanted to be sure.
Right, right.
And guilty. And then the third one, guilty. First vote, okay. Then I filled out the verdict forms, passed around the completed verdict form just so everyone sees, and then I got sealed it up in the envelope and was delivered to the bailiff. We notified the bailiff that we had a verdict, and we
How
didn't
long?
really notice how long it was, but
Okay.
apparently in the news article it said we deliberated less than an hour.
Oh boy. Did the defendant have any reaction when the verdict was read?
I can't remember. I was more focused on the judge, to be honest, and I was the one carrying the envelope. But then they pulled us and they asked us if that was our verdict, and the first person said guilty instead of yes, and so then we all just said guilty. Just hear it, guilty, guilty. You know,
No.
so that was nice. Um, just just to kind of, this is what we thought. We didn't have any doubts. For me personally, um, it was before, without him testifying. I think it definitely would have been beyond a reasonable doubt. But with
Mhm.
him testifying, it was like no doubt.
No doubt.
Yeah.
See, this is why I be saying it never serves for the defendant to testify. I mean, um, it it just doesn't.
So, um, and then I went to the sentencing, which was about 30 days later. He had the the pre-sentencing investigation report, and the judge asked something to the effect of, um, uh, "Are you comfortable with what's in it?" And he's like, "No." And then the judge was like, "Okay, well, is everything accurate and correct in there?" Yes. And um, we absolutely had no clue what the potential sentences would be for these counts. And I was actually shocked when speaking with the victim's friends um, at the sentencing that the state was asking for 91 years. And what they had done was they felt that they could lessen the burglary one to a burglary felony 4, and they asked for 39 and a half years for count 1, 39 and a half years for count 2, and 12 years for count 3, and to be to be served consecutively. The
Oh,
um, defendant spoke and said, "It wasn't me. If the victim were still alive, she could have testified and proven it wasn't me. I had nothing to do with it. Just not taking any responsibility for it." And so the judge said, yeah, you're going to serve 40, 40, and 12.
oh,
So,
so 92 instead of 91, which was the victim's age. If you guys didn't
yeah,
catch that.
yeah. And so I was just like, that is fantastic. The
And to
judge was
serve
like,
them
symbolically.
consecutively, wow.
Yeah. So it's, and this is after serving for the third essay.
Right. Now, Kimberly wants to know how many years there were between his arrest and her passing.
He was arrested before she passed. But again, there was like the COVID and the other.
The other assault, though, happened. How long after the third assault was he arrested,
Oh,
if you remember?
I don't, was it somewhere 2019?
Oh, okay. So maybe 6 months to a year.
Yeah, oh, I don't remember exactly.
Okay. 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 Okay.
So yeah, I kind of like the judge just saying, yeah, no, you didn't listen, you didn't, you know, not taking any responsibility.
Yeah. Wow.
Symbolically, if you gavel, gavel, you're doing it all. So
Was it
yeah,
hard for you after this case? Because I imagine that um, the testimony plus the pictures, even though the pictures are censored, the testimony isn't. Um, and so I did it stick with you for a long time? Does Indiana offer any type of you know, counseling or anything like Colorado does? If you, I mean, I'm not saying you needed it, but you know,
I'm
it's a
not
twofold question.
I'm not sure. I will say that as we were getting our jury instructions and before we went back to deliberate, right, the um, I don't know, the heaviness of the situation that here we are going to, among our fellow jurors, determine and um, make a huge impact upon this person's life and just the not severity, just the heaviness of it.
Hmm.
Did start to feel that, and then afterwards, it took me a couple days to just like that just happened
Right,
kind
right.
of unpack it because I very much had this. I was in my very clinical, outside of myself mindset during the trial. And then after the 2 days, I got kind of curious and found out, oh, we only got to see just a little piece of his criminal history. And then at sentencing, the prosecutor said, yeah, he's been a huge, extensive history since age 16. He'd been
Oh,
shot once. Just he's where he belongs. So it but yeah, the next 2 days it definitely was like that was a thing.
wow.
Yeah.
So you feel good about it. You feel like justice was served, and there's, you know, you walked away with no doubt at all.
Yes.
Good,
Absolutely. And
good.
even and just he's where he belongs. I'm glad I could do my part. We were all very confident we made the right decisions after the fact. We even asked the alternates because the poor alternates, they got to hear everything, and we got to speak with them, during the trial bit. But as far as deliberations, we were not allowed to
Right, but they
ask them
still have to
anything.
hang around until you guys are completely done,
And
right?
they were in the room with us. They just,
Couldn't speak.
yeah, not to us. They would speak
Gotcha.
to each other, but they're like, yeah, you guys got it right.
Oh,
So
good, good. Wow, Sarah, I mean, what an experience, and you don't have to do it another 2 years. Do you
yes.
think that, I wonder if after your 2 years are up, if you get a summons down the line, if they will pick you again. I'd be very curious if they would. I think you make a fantastic juror. I don't know if they would ever pick me. I think that I think they'd be I don't think that I think the prosecution might want me, but I don't know about. I think I think the defense would judge too quickly, thinking that because I do what I do, um, that I would be incapable of being able to give the defendant the presumption of innocence. But nothing could be further from the truth. 92 years, Sprinkle Donut. He got 92 years.
And this is
Um,
on top of his other sentence that he would be eligible for parole or whatever have you at the age of 85 or something. So, yeah,
I mean,
he's
even if
where he belongs.
right, but even if he is, and I tell this to people because you know I was one of the people who was infuriated that the judge gave Leilani Simon the opportunity for parole. But I understood why she did it. She wanted to give her, I think, something to look forward to or to work towards to try and better herself. She gave her the opportunity to better herself, to make changes. And it will be up to Leilani whether or not she does that. Even still, just because you're eligible for parole does not mean that you'll be granted parole. Ain't that right, Susan Smith? She had all manner of plans, y'all. I used to listen to her phone calls from prison. I don't know where those went. They're not there anymore. Maybe they're behind. Maybe they're on members only or something. But yeah, uh, she had all kinds of plans, y'all, for when she got out. Turns out she's staying put. And I don't think she's ever going to get out, quite frankly. I do not think that they will ever determine that she is not safe. Betty Broderick is another one. Betty Broderick has been up for parole, has had the opportunity at parole a couple of times now. And the one thing that Betty is required to do that she absolutely refuses to do is to say that Dan and Linda were victims, that she was wrong for what she did. She will not budge off the fact that they pushed her, in her opinion, in her mind, they pushed her to this. They tormented her. They played games, mind games. They did all manner of shenanigans. And she's not sorry for what she did. It was going to, she isn't. Then you have the opposite of the spectrum, which is Andrea Yates, who has been eligible for release, but won't even apply ever. She's happy where she wants. She's where she wants to be, she said. But yeah, I mean, we'll see what Leilani does. But I don't know that a parole board can look at Leilani's crimes. Oh, Diane Downs is another one. Diane Downs ain't never getting out because she's another one that can't take any level of accountability. The person that's really concerns me the most that's getting out is or that's eligible for parole, and I believe had a parole hearing, but I think it was denied the first time. Let me look her up really quick. Is Stephanie Lazarus. That woman should never get out. Here's the deal. Stephanie Lazarus avoided being captured for a very, very long time. And quite honestly, she is dangerous and absolutely does not ever deserve to be out. So in October of 2024, she was denied parole and will continue to serve her 27 years to life sentence. There we go. And she was okay. So 27 years to life in California. She was convicted in 2012 and went before and was up for parole after 12 years. Get the hell out of here. I don't think Lazarus should ever get parole. She's no. No. Oh yes, Kimberly. I know her. Dr. B and I have roasted Stephanie Lazarus interrogation. It's on my channel. It's something else. Well, Sarah, I really do appreciate so much you coming up here and sharing all of that, because it's not like this was not an easy case. This case had some twists to it, and just the circumstances of the case and the details of the crime were horrific.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you being willing to, go through that again with us. Just hold on a second. How do you spell Betty's last name? Broderick. Here we go. Let's see what's going on with old Betty. But I appreciate um I appreciate you sharing that and going through it all. Um Really, you did a phenomenal job, and thank you so much. Do you have anything you wanted to say that I didn't ask, or that that you just wanted to say?
No, just along those lines. It was really interesting to see at the time of the trial, to be sure, because normally I'm doing other things in the background, online, and then we knew nothing, absolutely nothing about the case, and to see it unfold and how they came up with, um, uh, through their investigations and the tools and some of the hearsay exceptions in this case, and um, how the memory affects it, because it was quite, it's multiple years since it happened, and working through that, I was really worried at first with those first two witnesses where they were like almost complete opposites.
Right.
Um, but then, no, things just kind of fall together.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially, I like that you mentioned that you guys used your common sense, like you thought about it. You didn't take any um, you didn't. How do I explain this? You didn't try to do any crazy leaps. You just used logic.
Right. And then it all fit nice and neat, even with these, you know, what could have been red herrings, but big picture and with everything else in our life experiences, it just fit.
Wow. That's just, I mean, wow. It's okay. So Kimberly wants to know the guy's name, and I know that you sent it to me. So is it okay if I say it? Because he's convicted,
Yeah,
right? So it's okay, right?
yeah.
Okay, hold on. Let me get it. Let me pull it up. I know why you're interested. Hang on a minute. Samuel L. Patterson is his name, Kimberly. So you're welcome, babe.
Here, I'll share.
Okay, you share.
Do, do, do. Hold up one of the news articles. That's him.
All right, here we go. There you go, Kimberly. Okay. Betty Broderick was denied parole in January 2010 and again in January 2017, and will not be eligible for parole again until January 2032. The parole board denied her request because she did not show remorse or acknowledge her wrongdoing. Reason for denial: the board of parole hearings cited her lack of remorse and failure to acknowledge her actions as reasons for denial. She will be getting in January of 2032. She will be eligible again to apply for parole. I highly doubt that she will be getting that.
And Meat Noodle, yes. And I think one of the reasons why I didn't want his appearance to bias me is I was one of the jurors that were sitting closest to him on that side of the courtroom. So, um, I was just focused on the witness stand, any of the pictures they may have been displaying on the screen, and the judge. And just kind of didn't want anything to influence me, especially with me being so close.
Wow. What how old will Betty be in 2032? Shoot, hold on, let me look. Oh, I meant to, let's see. Betty. She's 77 years old now. So 31, 32. She'll be 7 years older than that. 84 years old. Betty will be 84 years old trying to be applying for parole. Did you see this other question? At what age was he arrested for his first essay? Sarah, did you see that?
Yes, and let's see, I was just seeing if that article mentioned. He was convicted in 1998. So what? 40s?
What? That was the how old he was? He arrested when he went for his first essay. He was arrested in his 40s.
30s. That's 20 years.
Yeah, that's about
No, so it's like 30s.
Yeah, his 30s. Probably not. But wow, Sarah. That's a crazy case. I really do appreciate you coming up here. Thank you so much. I do appreciate it. I'm glad we did this. I'm glad you text me and you're like, listen, Bindi, we're going to do this or what? No, she didn't. She was like, Bindi, can we? And I was like, you know what, Sarah, let's put something in. Let's make something firm. Let's make firm plans. That's the only way I can operate. I have to have firm plans. Don't leave it to question. Don't, you got to just like kind of, you kind of got to just kind of like rein me in a little, Sarah. I don't know if you've noticed, that I get off task and stuff. I don't know if anybody's noticed that.
No, and just with the school, and it was crazy, and summer, and now I was just like, okay, things have settled, at least for me.
Yes, I'm glad we were able to do this. And I want to thank you guys all so very much for being here and listening to Sarah and asking great questions. And so now you guys know, like sometimes we really worry about what does the jury think when they hear these things that are brought up by the defense. And the truth is the jury really does just go back there. They use their common sense. Sarah brought that up like multiple times about how they applied common sense. And so I think in some of these cases that we get worried about when the defense tries to throw in monkey wrenches. I don't think we should be so worried anymore. I think we should trust more in the jury system. Sarah, you have restored my faith in humanity. For that, I thank you. Thank you for doing that, sitting up, because a lot of people would try to get out of it, you know?
Yes, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
when my kids were little, I did get out of it because there's no way. I mean, I was a stay-at-home mom. They weren't in school. I did have to get out of it. But looking back, I probably missed my big opportunity. You know what I mean? I'll probably never get called again. Because now I'm in that weird age group that they don't like. And the prosecution loves our age group, but the defense does not. And then on top of it, what I did, you know, that I belong to the tubes, that's enough to sully anybody's reputation. So I likely won't ever get an opportunity, but that's all right. I will always be the 13th juror for all these other trials that we watch. So thank you again, Sarah. I'm going to let everybody go for tonight. And I got a couple of things I want to talk to you guys about tomorrow, starting with Chad Daybell. Y'all, Emma has been out here creating an X account and a website putting up Chad's letters. We're going to talk about it. Also, we have the Apostle and Michelle, who've now been charged by the feds. So we're going to talk about that too. So I hope you guys will all be here for that. But thank you guys all for being here. If you haven't done so, give your girl a thumbs up and have a great rest of your night. And I will talk to you all later. Bye.